So you're thinking about leaving California and moving to Houston, Texas. Now you're wondering, is it gonna be a completely different place, a culture shock? Is it worth leaving the California weather that's 70 degrees every single day for Houston's hot 200-degree weather? And I'm here to tell you that I think it's gonna be okay. Take it from me, I just moved here 6 months ago and I do not regret my decision one bit, because I think when you start comparing both cities, you'll actually see that they have a lot more in common than you think. That's what I want to talk about today. Some of the similarities and some of the differences that you're gonna find between California, but specifically Los Angeles and Houston, Texas. But before we jump too far into it, my name is Rob Abasolo. I'm part of your local realty team here in Houston, Texas, and we can help you get into your dream home. Or if you're thinking about selling your house here in Houston, we can get it listed and sold for you so we can get you into your next house. If you want to get connected with me and my team, I'll leave a link down in the description below. All right, let's jump into it. All right, so let's talk about the one glaringly obvious difference here. I want to be very honest about really the most visceral aspect of leaving California for Texas. And I kind of already alluded to it in the intro here, but it's gonna be the weather. If you live in California, usually you're gonna be experiencing nice sunny weather. At the very least, if it is hot, it's gonna be a very dry heat. If you live in LA, then you're gonna be used to 72-degree weather. When I moved here, actually, we were in the middle of a cold front, and it was cold for about 3-4 months, like very, very cold. And we're like, oh, okay, we can deal with cold, not a big deal. But then the summer hit and we were, I don't know, I think this was a historic year, but it was 100 degrees for like 3, 4, 5 weeks straight. Very hot, and not only was it 100 degrees, but it's very humid. So if you got long hair, yeah, just be prepared for some frizz. But I honestly think that once you get used to the heat, it's not a big deal. It's not like you're gonna be walking outside. You're gonna be inside most of the time. You're gonna be in your car most of the time, or you're gonna be inside of a store or a restaurant. So unless you're a very active person that's outside all the time, I don't think this is something that's gonna totally crunch your vibe. And even if you are an outdoorsy type of person, you're just gonna have to learn to basically work out in the mornings or in the very late afternoon. So that's gonna be the number one biggest difference that you're gonna see between a place like Los Angeles and Houston. Number two, getting into some of the positives here, LA traffic is absolutely horrendous. You cannot really escape a 15-minute radius in LA, right? When you move there, you basically live within 15 minutes. Your grocery store, any stores that you visit, any friends, they're gonna be within 15 minutes, because the moment that you try to travel outside of 2 miles around your house, for example, it could take you anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to get around. Now, there are some dead zones in LA for the most part when it comes to traffic, but yeah, it's traffic all day, every day. What you see in the movies, what you see on social media, it's very true. The traffic there is horrible. On the flip side of this, when you move to Houston, it's funny because I'm originally from Houston. This is my hometown, but I've lived in LA, I've lived in Tennessee, I've lived in so many different places around the country, Kansas City, for example, and by far the worst traffic was LA. So when I moved to Houston, a lot of the people here say that Houston has really bad traffic. They complain about the traffic, and I always think it's very adorable because I just don't think that the set of traffic in both cities are at all comparable. I don't want to gloss over it. Houston definitely has traffic, and honestly, I think even comparing LA to it is somewhat of an unfair comparison because Houston definitely has traffic, but I think if you're moving from California to Houston, you'll be happy. You'll be happier that there's technically less traffic in general. Third thing that I want to talk about here is the food. When I was making the decision to leave California and LA, me and my wife were super bummed because LA to us is somewhat of a mecca when it comes to food. It really is a melting pot of food. You can get Indian food, Vietnamese food, Thai food. You can get the best sushi in the world. Okay, well, obviously Japan is probably the best sushi, but outside of Japan, LA is definitely ranked somewhere at the top. So we were really apprehensive to leave that behind because we're big foodies, and it's not like we were going out to eat every single day, but when we wanted to, we knew that we could go and eat at a world-class restaurant. So moving to Houston, we were a little depressed to leave that behind. But I gotta say, I have been pleasantly surprised by the food scene here in Houston, so much so that I'm gonna go ahead and say that I don't think there's a huge difference. Like, I think I can get the exact same kind of food here in Houston. Actually, I can get more food. Anywhere outside of Texas, people don't even know what kolaches are. We can get crawfish here. We can get oysters on the shell anywhere. Granted, they are Gulf oysters, but an oyster's an oyster, I suppose. So I have not been disappointed by the food scene here. And in the neighborhood where we're at, the Heights, it has some of the best food in the entire city. So don't worry about leaving behind food in LA, because I can assure you, you'll find some of your favorite favorite restaurants that you've ever been to in Houston. And this to me, oh man, such a relief. Honestly, the food was something I was really hung up on, hence why I've been talking about it for the last couple of minutes, because it's important to me. So if food is important to you, out of all the cities in Texas, I think Houston's gonna be the place to live. All right, so this one is a little touchy here. I'm gonna go number 4, politics. Let's get into politics. Everyone's like, oh boy, what's he gonna say? I will say that LA tends to be a bit of an echo chamber. Hold on, before you try to cancel me and you're like, oh my God, what is he saying? I've lived in Tennessee as well. Tennessee is also an echo chamber of their own beliefs. The only place that I felt like never came up was Kansas City, to be honest. But now that I live in Houston, I actually feel like political diversity is a thing here, meaning you can walk down a road and see all the different signs, so many different people on different walks of life. And you might think that's a bad thing. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is that I just think it's so important to coexist with everybody. I genuinely do. And I was just so tired of everyone falling on the sword for every single thing in LA or in Tennessee. I mean, this is something that I've been dealing with over the past 2 years specifically. And honestly, I was just super tired of it. Like genuinely, I was just like, I hate that I have to hate somebody based on political preferences, and I don't feel that way in Houston. I genuinely don't. I genuinely feel like everyone here in my community specifically, they're super friendly, everybody embraces each other, everyone gets along, everyone works through their differences, and coexisting is super, super important to me. So I think if you're looking for political diversity and like a well-rounded community, I like Houston for that reason. Again, I don't want to really, this channel will never be about politics, but I do want to put that out there because I think at the end of the day, it seems like a lot of people are starting to feel the way I feel. We just want to get back to like being friends again, and I think you're gonna find that in Houston. Okay, so moving on here, back to the traffic actually. This is a big difference here, like a huge difference. In most of California, definitely LA, you basically have the highway system, and that's what you got. You can get on the highway, you can get off the highway to get onto a road, but there are no feeder or frontage roads, and that's something that's all over Houston and Texas, meaning there is a road that runs along the side of the highway so that if you have to get off the highway, you can just drive on that road. And if you miss an exit, you can ride on that frontage road and then get back on the highway. I mean, this is something that I was used to growing up. And then when I went to other cities that didn't have frontage roads, it was a huge adjustment for me. I hate that that doesn't exist everywhere. So I actually do think, going back to the traffic, the infrastructure in Houston is good. The infrastructure in LA, not great. In all of California, probably not the greatest either. But when I left Houston, it wasn't really that great. I remember always coming back to visit for college, for holidays, and it just seemed like every single highway was always under construction. It was so frustrating to get around. And now that I've been gone from this city for like 12, 13 years, I've come back and it's all completed, and actually it's done. Not really, there's always still construction, but for the most part, the highway system here is crazy good. So even though there is traffic, it seems like Houston is putting money into expanding their infrastructure. That's gonna be super important for getting around because Houston is a big city. Lastly, and this is a huge one, architecture and housing for the most part. I think architecture in LA is better, but the housing is super, 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 super expensive in Los Angeles and all of California. The average out there is crazy compared to what you can get in all of Texas, but in Houston. Houston is definitely growing, and that means that the housing prices are going up, but what you can buy here is just so crazy because a starter home in Los Angeles is gonna cost you anywhere from like 800 grand to $1 million. A starter home, right? But if you took that 800,000 or $1 million and you use that to buy a house here in Houston, you could have a giant house, like a nice house that's anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 square feet. Absolutely crazy. Or you don't have to spend the 800,000 to $1 million. You could buy a $500,000 house and still have a way nicer house than you ever would in LA. Now, obviously, there are some trade-offs there, right? You're leaving behind LA, a generally nice place to live with great weather and awesome food and a mecca of culture and blah, 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 right? But hopefully, after watching this video, you can realize you're not actually sacrificing too much of that stuff to move to Houston other than the weather. And I genuinely think you can build a nice, fun, awesome life in a great community out here in Houston, Texas. That's it. That's my spiel. Maybe I'll do more of these. I don't know. We'll see if I get canceled after this video. But again, if you're looking to buy a house here in Houston, Texas, my name is Rob Abasolo. I would be happy to get you into your dream home out here. So if you want to work with me and my team, be sure to click the link in the description down below. All right, catch you on the next episode. See ya.